have a manuscript, the autographs, we cannot know when a manuscript is written. Because we don't have the autographs, we can only know from when the first manuscript is. Would that be a correct assessment of the view you're putting forward?
All I'm saying is that in order for you to find out what Jesus actually preached or what he said, yes? Look, for example, Muslim and Bukhari, they were written like 200 years after the Prophet ﷺ. Yes? We do not say they lived in the time of Muhammad. However, they are able to say what Muhammad said based on the chain of narration. And not only the chain of narration, we have something called Ilm al-Rijal, which is basically we know about each individual in that chain of narration, which goes all the way back to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, in order to identify whether the hadith is sahih, is authentic, whether it is da'if, whether it is weak, whether it is mawdu, whether it's fabricated, or it's hasan, and so on. So there's different gradings. Absolutely. Yes, it actually has a whole science. There's a whole science. I know that. But in terms, because the Christians do not have any of this science, you don't have the oral tradition, you do not have the written tradition, how will you come to the conclusion what Jesus said after more than 100 years since he passed away? That's all my question is.
Okay, well, can I speak and then I won't?
Yeah, go on, yeah.
Because the issue, first and foremost, is that the reason that you have the chain of transmission that the Muslims have is because they do history very different to what would have done in Muhammad's time and the time of Jesus. The reason that we can have confidence over what the New Testament says is because the number of manuscripts that we have, yes, they date even sometimes later to the 3rd and 4th century, but the thing we have with the New Testament is it was never under one person's control. When you have Matthew being written, you have that then being given to people and they transmitted it to different places. You have Mark being written, that being transmitted to different places. So the manuscripts that we have, they come from all different places, from all different lines. So we can come and bring them together and look, okay, what does the original say? The multiplicity of copies and the fact that no one was ever in control of one copy means that we can see where people have made errors, spelling mistakes, or even put things in. So that's why we can have confidence over what Jesus said.
That doesn't answer the question. I think you misunderstood the question. Because all you said is you have multiple manuscripts. Yes? By the way, do you know Bar Ehrman said that majority of the manuscripts do not agree with each other, and there are many, several thousands of differences. In fact, he says there are more differences in the manuscripts than the number of verses in the entire Bible. Now the important thing is this: if you do not have anyone like Matthew, Luke, John, so on, they all died after 100 years since they have written. So how will you verify what Jesus said?
I just told you.
From this, all you said is, look, the extant manuscripts date 100 years. So there's nothing from the 1st century.
No,
yes?
Again,
you find fragments in the 2nd century, and majority of them are, I think, from the 4th, and some from the 3rd, majority of the 4th century and beyond. So you're talking about 400 years after Jesus, 300 years after Jesus. Who was alive to tell the tale? You do not have oral tradition like the Muslims do. You do not have written tradition like the Muslims do. So what are you depending on? You have no chain of narrations. So even the most weak hadith in the tradition of Islam, even that standard you do not have, because you don't have the sanad, you don't have the chain of narration. So what are you relying on? Because you don't have the written, you don't have the oral, you don't have the chain of narration. How will you come to a conclusion as to what Jesus said and what he did not say?
Because again, you're not listening to what I say.
I did, because you mentioned the manuscripts, which came hundreds of years after.
You didn't listen to what I said, or you didn't understand what I said.
No, I did.
Even when you quote Bar Ehrman, you're quoting him wrong.
No, I did not. I can have the exact quote if you want.
Let me finish.
I have the exact quote.
Hashim, I let you speak.
Yeah, fair enough.
Give me the the quote you say is correct. What you miss is what he says afterwards. What he says afterwards is that yes, there are up to 400,000 variants. They don't matter for a thing. All they prove is that the pimps, they can't spell any better than his students can. That's what he said.
I think you're completely misrepresenting.
Hold on.
He has written an entire book called Forged.
Hold on.
He's written an entire book which is called Forged with regards to the Bible. But you're misrepresenting Bar Ehrman. You know that.
I'll let you speak. Let me finish.
Did I misquote him?
No.
There you go.
I'm not misquoting him either.
No, you are misquoting him. Because for you to say, he has written, have you read the book Forged?
No.
Right. That entire book talks about the forgeries of the New Testament. Okay. So it cannot be his entire book actually tells you that it cannot be relied upon.
Let me finish.
And they say that many of the things that you
write this down. The quote I'm saying, and I went back because we've had this discussion.
No, I know the Christians use one quote and they completely ignore the entire works of his.
No, because we're going to be...
I think what you're quoting is from one of his interviews, not from one of his books. That was one of his interviews.
I'm quoting from both his interview and a debate. He used both the same response, okay? So the response is that the differences don't matter. Even when he was asked in the back of... misquoting Jesus, do these differences affect Christian doctrine? Even Bar-Ehren admits, no, these differences do not affect Christian doctrine. So you're again misusing Bar-Ehren. What I'm saying with the manuscripts is this. Okay, we have so many that they're sent to different places. Okay, they're sent to different places. So what we can do, we can compare manuscripts. We can go, okay, what is common to them? What is different? What is common to them? Okay, that has to come from the original because there's no.
Why? Why is that?
I'm going to explain that.
Yes.
Because there's no. If you've got different lines of transmission, how can all say 10 different lines, and it's more than that. But say 10 different lines. How could all 10 of them have the same thing that the original didn't have, unless they came from the original?
Very simple. I'll tell you what. Very simple.
How can you corrupt all 10?
It's very simple.
Okay.
To disprove that point, I'll just make one statement and you tell me what you think about it. Let's say let's say an early scribe writes something and he makes a mistake in that. And now you have hundreds and thousands of copies made of that. Yes? They will all copy the exact same mistake. So now you have this same mistake being sent to different places. It can be tens of lines, even hundreds of lines. The point is, it will be repeated, that mistake will be repeated that many times.
Okay.
No, wait, I haven't finished yet. I haven't finished. Now, this one mistake that the early scribe made, yes, unless and until it is checked, corrected by someone, yes, this will proliferate every single person who copies from that. Now, how will this mistake be corrected if this verse was written by the scribe and then propagated to different parts of the world, whatever it is? How will it be corrected?
Okay, I'm going to answer. You said, okay, from this one you have others coming up. I agree with you.
Yeah.
They will most likely copy that mistake.
Yes.
But what you're ignoring is the rest of the others that were written at the same time as that scribe who didn't make the mistake.
No, that is an if.
Hold on.
I'm saying if not. If not, then what?
But your example assumes it.
Of course I am assuming, because now, so are you assuming. You're assuming that hundreds of them wrote it. Other people also wrote this.
Again, what we're going to notice is this.
Is what?
We have these manuscripts here that say this, and they're in this particular line. Okay, this line of text. We have these here, which are going down different lines of transmission that are going to show us, okay, they don't have it. So what textual scholars do, they go, all right, they notice that there are certain, they're called text types, that they follow a certain tradition, they have certain verses in that others don't. So we can say, oh, because these ones gone down this line, but others have gone down different lines, and they don't have it in, that the most likely is that it wasn't original. So we've considered all of these things.
So it's an assumption then? Yeah, because what you just said is an assumption, that because these lines don't have this and this one has it, so we will assume this is what Jesus said. So it's an assumption.
Yeah.
Can that assumption be wrong?
Are you then saying that, say we have a verse that only goes down one, okay?
Yeah.
And
no, I'm not saying it goes down one. I'm saying it can go down multiple, but because they have copied from the same scribe, that one error will be repeated in these multiple chains.
Yes, but they stem back to one. Okay, they stem back to one. That's not the.
And how will you correct that one? That's the question.
Listen. You stem. So don't think you listen to me. You stem back to that one.
Yes.
Okay? What about the others chains which stem back to the original? How are you going to explain?
You don't have the original.
No, but the chains go back to the original.
Which original? You don't have it.
Yes, but they go back to the original. That's where.
You keep repeating the original. There is no orthographic. manuscripts you have. So how will you go back to the original?
No, you're not.
What do you mean original? The original example I gave you is this. Let's say you have an early scribe. Let's say it's 90 years after Jesus. Yes, not 125 years. Okay. If this scribe, after 90 years, maybe he's heard from someone wherever it is, and you have only this scribe writing this particular verse, and all the others are destroyed or lost or whatever. Yes. How will you be able to correct what this error this particular scribe made? If all the previous orthographic versions, all the previous copies of the originals are destroyed? How would you know?
Again, you're not hearing me.
I think I hear you clearly, but it looks like you don't want to accept and acknowledge that there is no way to identify without a chain of narration.
No, again,
you don't even know the scribe's name, let alone the chain of narration. Can you name even a single scribe who have written in the name of Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John? Because you do. I don't know if you have read.
What you're doing now is called an anachronism. What you're doing.
No, it's not an anachronism. It is actually. I gave you even the time. I gave you the time frame from 90 years after Jesus, and you have only this person whose writing has survived, and he has made a mistake in the surviving manuscript. Now, if his manuscript is copied elsewhere, you have multiple chains from him. However, they all contain that error. How will you correct it? Also, how will you verify that? Because what?
Because when the New Testament went out, it didn't go just to one scribe to 90 years, and then.
Sorry, when the New Testament went out?
Yes.
When did it go out?
As soon as it was written, it was copied.
When was it written?
Well, for each individual book, you have a time spanning from the 40s up to the 90s. So when a book is written, it's copied by multiple people and sent to multiple locations.
That's not how it worked.
Hold on.
That's not how it worked. Are you telling me the people who wrote, for example, let's say Paul?
Yeah.
Are you saying that Paul actually had access to Mark, Matthew, Luke?
He wrote Matthew
and John?
They came after him.
No, did he have access to their Gospels?
He had access to the disciples.
That wasn't my question. Did he have access to the Gospels?
He would have had access to...
Let's say John wrote, according to you guys, he wrote his Gospel in the year 90, for example. So he wouldn't have access to Gospel of John, would he? Okay. So what are you saying they sent out the New Testament? Somehow you...
Wait.
No. You told me as a book, yes, of course. And that is anachronistic.
Hold on. If I said no, you've misunderstood me.
No, I did not.
When I said New Testament, if I conveyed to you that it was sent out as an individual book, then I have conveyed that wrongly. Okay. What you have, the individual books of the New Testament.
Yeah, that's better.
All 27.
Because earlier you somehow seemed to imply that it was one book as the New Testament.
Well, I didn't mean to imply.
Okay, fair enough.
That's never been my
good thing has been corrected.
Or what I was communicating.
Okay.
Maybe I misspoke, which means you got the wrong idea. And instead, what I'm saying is when the individual books, such as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, what Paul wrote, etc., when they are written, each individual of those is sent out and copied many times over and sent to different locations. So if by the time
we don't have evidence for that, do we? You're just assuming all this.
No, that's what.
Are you saying the books were copied over time, many times, and then they were distributed everywhere? Where's the evidence for that?
That's because we have so many different New Testaments.
No. You have later manuscripts. You don't have from that century. You have nothing from the first century.
Okay.
So you are assuming because this is the third person.
Who wrote it?
That's the question I'm asking you.
Well, if
it was written,
if Matthew wrote it, would you not say according to Matthew? It's got the gospel.
No. If it's a third person saying it, then you'll say according to Matthew. But if Matthew wrote it, then he would sign his book by Matthew.
Why?
Because he's the one who's written that. Have you seen any author who says according to...
Today or back then?
No, I'm saying you. Have you seen any book where it says according to this author?
Today or back then? Because again, you're assuming that...
Even back then. Show me another book where the author wrote it, but then it says according to. I think you... Look, Nathan, with all due respect, I think you should go and read this up. Because I think this is the conclusion of majority of the scholars, that Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, these are the pseudonyms that they have written under. They themselves have not written these works. You should really go
Hashim,
and look it up.
With all due respect, rather than bring
Is Paul here?
Hashim,
I think Paul can shed some light on it. Is he here?
bring
Is he
an
gone?
argument.
He's gone, yeah, okay.
Actually bring forward an argument rather than saying, Nathan, you don't know anything.
I didn't say you didn't know anything. I said you have. No. I'm saying you go and research it.
I have researched.
Okay? And you actually come across any major scholar who says, yes, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John actually wrote it. Then we'll discuss.
All I've got is your words. You're just asserting that. You're asserting this is what scholars have said.
No, don't take my word for it. You go and research it.
I have researched.
This is like the third time I'm repeating.
That's why I believe you're wrong, because I have looked into
Okay, so if you have researched, just show me one major scholar who says this.
I don't use the argument, major scholars say this, major scholars say that.
It is important because look, you and I are not scholars, so we have to rely on them. I have no shame in saying I research and then I ask, I look at the works of the scholars.
All right then, why do the scholars, according to you, say that Matthew, Mark, Luke and John were not written by lesbians?
Why?
Why were Matthew, Mark,
because of the textual analysis that they have done in the books. For example, some of them were not even learned. So for them to write Greek to such high standard, it itself shows that these people who are be fishermen or someone who's not learned, for them to write such Greek is impossible. That is one example that they give, one analysis that they give of this, which completely disproves anyone who makes a point that these people had written in such high standard of Greek. Okay? So there you go.
Hold on.
Is that fair?
Hold on.
Is that a fair analysis?
But that again, that assumes that they wouldn't be able to do that. But
No, because it does. Look, if I told you that someone who is a fisherman and he speaks really high standard of Greek when he doesn't even know how to read and write Greek properly, then for you and me to assume that he knows perfectly Greek and to write to such high standard as a academic, as someone as a scholar, then that would be unfair and it would be actually insincere, to be honest.
Well, you're assuming that they were illiterate and you're not able to read and write.
I'm not assuming. At that time, most of the people were illiterate.
Hold on. Would a doctor be in that position?
Which doctor? Are you talking about Luke?
Yes.
Well, I didn't say all, did I?
Okay, so
I said some of them.
All right, so let's go.
And by the way, Luke didn't even see Jesus.
Okay.
So where did he get his information from?
But you said that Luke is a pseudonym, yes?
No, I said Luke. Yes, even Luke himself did not write that book.
No.
The reason for that is because many of the things that Jesus said in the red letter, it is as if Jesus said it verbatim as to what he said. But Luke never saw Jesus, did he?
Well, what did Luke say?
Did Luke see Jesus any time in his life?
What does Luke say in his first chapter?
Are you going to answer the question?
No,
Did Luke see Jesus in his lifetime? No. So he relied on whom?
First, eyewitnesses.
No, he didn't say eyewitnesses.
He did.
He said he is asking, he's searching, and it seems good to him to write because it was in vogue. It was in fashion that time. Did he say he was inspired by God? No, he did not say that.
No, what's he saying?
He says,
you're trying to prove at the moment.
He said, read Luke 1:1, the one you pointed out to me.
You're trying to prove Luke didn't write Luke. How does?
I'm not saying this. The scholars are saying this.
Right. Your argument that Luke didn't write Luke is that Luke didn't see Jesus.
No, but that's another argument either.
So
not because I'm not making that argument because for Luke not writing Luke. Okay. I'm saying Luke and Mark, they were not the disciples of Jesus. They did not see Jesus.
True.
Yes? And Matthew copied from Mark.
Yeah.
What do you mean, yeah? Do you not know that? Are you going to dispute that as well?
Yes.
You're going to dispute that? Many things that are written in Matthew are exactly what Mark actually... And Mark is an earlier gospel than Matthew.
Can I ask that question?
Ask what?
When I say dispute, when people say copy, the assumption is that Matthew just copied everything in Mark. The problem with that is that Matthew is much longer. So while Matthew may have used Mark as an outline, may have used some of the information from Mark, there are many things recorded in Matthew that
I didn't say exactly the same, did I?
No, I'm saying when you say copy, you don't clarify yourself. So what you're giving...
Well, ask me then. Ask me, I'll clarify it for you. Look, if you copy something from someone, that doesn't mean you can't add more of your own stuff.
Okay. So then okay?
Because plagiarism does work like that actually. You copy most of the stuff and then you can add some of it.
Plagiarizing. It's very easy.
No, I'm not saying it's plagiarism. I'm saying that's how plagiarism works. Okay. What I'm saying is that, look, many of the scholars have clearly, this is like it's quite a common knowledge if you have done even if you have even scratched the surface of understanding textual criticism.
Let's go back to Luke.
Yeah, go on.
That's a different subject. Let's go back to Luke. Why do you say Luke did not write Luke?
Why do I say? I don't say. I'm saying the scholars say that
say that the scholars say that Luke didn't write Luke?
I don't know. I mean, I can find out the reasons.
Then go in there, right, so until that, you can't. Your statement that Luke didn't write Luke is false.
No. Wait. Look at this, man. Just because I say I don't know, it means it's false. Wow. You know, if that is the kind of research you carry out, I feel sorry for you, Nathan.
If you want to insult me, fine, but that's...
No, you're insulting me by saying that...
Because you made a claim.
No, but do you even listen to yourself? Look, just because I say I don't know, that means I'm wrong.
It means you're wrong.
Does that even make sense to you?
When you said it means you're wrong...
I said I don't know. Okay. I didn't say I am wrong. There's a big difference. If I said I was wrong, or if you prove what I said was wrong, then yes, you can make that claim.
This is what I explained to you when I say that you're wrong. If you were saying, okay, the scholars all say this, but you haven't looked into the reason why scholars have said it, why are you saying that scholars say it? That's the reason why I'm saying you're kind of asserting something that you then, when you're pressed on, you haven't got the kind of information to back it up. Now, if you want to go away and look at...
No, it's not. No. Hold on. For me, if I looked into it quite a while back and I've forgotten now,
okay.
Yes?
If you've forgotten, that's fine.
Could that be possible? Good. Why didn't you ask me? Instead of saying it is false. You already, before you asked me, no, I said I don't know. Yeah. Before you even asked me, you already made the statement that I'm wrong.
Yeah, but if you're wrong, yes.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion. But you're wrong about the thing that you assume that all of them have written the Bible, all of them who have written the Gospel in the name of this Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John were actually written by Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John.
Well, again, you've just made that assertion. I've asked you for evidence, especially in Luke, because you said, well, scholars say it, but I don't know why.
I give you one example. That some of them, for example...
No, I'm saying Luke specifically.
Okay, do you think Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John were...
I'm asking for Luke. I'm asking for specific...
You know why you went to Luke? Because I gave you that example that some of them did not Greek properly. Yes. So the reason you're stuck with Luke is because of that. No, because you couldn't answer the earlier reasoning I gave you, so now you went to Luke. Luke wasn't even there, so how does he know what Jesus said?
That wasn't your statement.
No, I'm asking you now.
Your statement, your statement is, okay, Luke didn't write Luke. Is that true or false?
And I've told you I don't know.
Okay, so you're going
to can we move on? Can we move on now?
So you're going to say that, okay, so you've got to go back and look at the scholars. So at this point in time, you cannot say Luke didn't write. You can say the scholars say Luke didn't write Luke, but I don't know.
I said I've read it a long time and I forgot.
You've now said that. That's the first time you said that.
No, I said it earlier as well. Okay, look, whatever it is, for you to say I'm wrong, it's completely wrong as well. Okay? The question to you is this. If you believe that they wrote it and then people still said according to, then you really have to explain that, because you haven't explained that.
I did.
No, you didn't. You failed to explain that. It's very bad.
Again,
if they're written there, it will be by Luke, by Matthew, by John. And by the way, why is Matthew copied from Mark, who was not even a disciple? Does that make sense to you?
Who was Mark? Yes, it does make perfect sense, because although you say Mark wasn't there, Mark copied his gospel. Quotes information from Peter. We have quotes from the early church fathers describing Mark's gospel as essentially the memoirs of Peter. So although yes, Mark wasn't there.
So Mark actually saw Peter?
He's not there.
Did Mark meet Peter?
Yes.
Where's the evidence for that?
That's what we have the quotes from the early church fathers, such as Papias quotes that he's writing from Peter. That's well known. Everyone knows that. If you have gone to the scholars, I thought you know that.
Well, you know Polycarp was a student of John?
Yep.
And he never quotes him once?
So?
So your early church fathers are wrong?
So what? So one church father doesn't quote...
Polycarp is actually the student of John and he never quotes John once. What does that tell you?
We're talking about Mark now.
No, but I'm telling you, you're depending on the early church fathers. Yeah. Do you really think early church fathers are reliable? What? None of the early church fathers from the 1st, 2nd century believed in the Trinity the way you believe in.
Actually, that's false.
Really? Show me one church father who believes in the Trinity.
Ignatius of Antioch, who died in 17108, as he was writing letters on his way up to, I think it was Rome, to be killed, he quotes extensively on the Trinity.
Yeah. And how does he believe in the Trinity?
Because he quotes that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, each one of them is God.
Each one of them is God? Yes. And he believes these three are one?
Yes.
Yes. Show me where that is.
Well, you have to go and read Ignatius.
Well, you have to provide evidence. You can't just say go and read Ignatius. If you got evidence, what part of Ignatius am I reading?
Scholars, so you go read Ignatius. There we go. We're giving an HMO.
No, you're saying Ignatius said this. Yeah. When did he?
He died in 107, 108.
107, 108. Yes. And he actually believed in the Trinity. Yes. When did they actually say that what exactly did he say about the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost?
Go and read Hashim.
You haven't read it, have you?
Yes, I have.
No, you haven't.
I have.
You haven't read it. You know that, Nathan.
Yes. I read the quotes where he's quoting about about the Father, the Son,
Then you have to.
Was he considered a heretic?
Pardon?
Was he yes, Ignatius.
By who?
You tell me. You have read it.
No, you just said he's considered.
I'm asking you. Was he considered a heretic?
By who?
You tell me.
What? That doesn't make sense. I'm going to end this now. 'Cause
Of course you're going to end this because you see, all these people that you think they believed in the Trinity, including including Ignatius, were called heretics.
All right, I just want to know. Okay, thank you.
No problem. I mean, why would Matthew copy from Mark if he's a disciple? It doesn't make sense.
The thing is, you have to prepare, like, you know, whatever you claiming to support your claim. To support your claim, I think, you know, it
works both ways.
No, it does. It does. You have every right to ask me for evidence, just like I have the right to ask you for evidence.
All right, have a good day.
All right, take care. Bye.
It's done, yeah?
No, it's not that he couldn't take anymore.
That's my one. That's my one.
Speculating. And he knows he has